Good morning, guys, and welcome to the start of the trading week. I didn't really have a chance to put out a video over on Sunday just analyzing my expectations on what the market was going to do, mostly just because markets weren't opening until Tuesday. So figured I'd do that today, Monday. Well, I guess now it's Tuesday actually, so I'm doing it today on Tuesday. There you go. Anyways, so I just found an interesting article which kind of breaks down why the market's rallying so much and really illustrates one of my big issues with the government stepping in by forcing people to stay home. Let me just pop over to the article. It was really interesting, Yahoo News piece. So corporate profits look better than expected, and the economy looks worse than expected was the top highlight on this. The article itself is why the stock market is outperforming the economy. And one of the big reasons is that big companies are doing better is government bailout money. So the government has a lot of packages for large corporations, and it's a lot harder for a smaller business to get help/financing from the government in order to be able to keep their doors open and compete. And then you've got all these individual states forcing businesses to shut down, stay closed. Here in Texas, they actually arrested a lady, if I remember. I forget what that article was, but they arrested a hair salon owner. I can't remember her name, but she was actually in jail for opening her business because both she and her hairdressers, salon people, needed money. They need to work. You can't not work. We need a purpose and a task and something to be doing. You need to work to make a living. It's a normal thing. And you can't just stop that because of a virus, which we don't actually know that much about. We don't really know what the actual mortality rate is of it. It's really bad for people that already have a compromised immune system or they've already struggling with something. And so yeah, we need to take it seriously, but we cannot shut down the economy. One of the largest employers in our country is small businesses. And small businesses that are deemed non-essential were forced to shut down, where you've got big companies, and then right here they just say big companies are doing much better than expected, and they're able, oftentimes, not always, but frequently larger companies are able to use leverage better and work through challenging times, work more closely with the government. The government regulation actually helps larger businesses and it hinders smaller businesses anyway. And so as the government's stepping in and creating all this legislation to help, it's making things more complicated, not necessarily making things easier for smaller businesses. So what I think the government should have done, rather than shutting down the economy, which was never a good idea, let's admit it, that was always a really terrible idea. And rather than shutting down the entire economy, the government should have said, hey, we need to see in businesses safety standards set. So like they're already doing in the store, spread things out so you can have 6 feet between people. With restaurants, maybe with the food industry and stuff, perhaps that wouldn't have been possible to avoid. But certainly for other businesses, you don't need to go in and shut them down. Just make sure, say, look, we need these safety standards just to make sure people are being protected. People can continue going to work. It'll be more challenging, sure, but you don't wind up with millions of people losing their jobs because the state governor said, no, the economy is shut down, we're closed, no one's going anywhere, no one's doing anything. And again, I understand why they did that, because it's their job to protect the public, and they were afraid that hundreds, maybe thousands of people in their state are going to die from this pandemic. And then they'll be blamed for not responding quickly enough. But the problem is now you've got millions of people unemployed, and now you need to get them back employed, and we're providing them with stimulus checks and all this crazy stuff, which, if they'd been able to continue working, would be unnecessary. Once we pay out these stimulus checks, I got my stimulus check, it's gonna be like, wow. I was like, dude, this money will cover my rent. And that's nice. And then you've got the unemployment, which is higher than a lot of people are making through their work. So you're not gonna have very much incentive for a lot of these people to go back to work anytime soon. Now, from a pandemic perspective, yeah, sure, that's accomplishing their goal of keeping people in their homes and making sure that people aren't spreading the virus. The problem with this is operating under the assumption that the virus has not already spread, and we just do not know to what extent the virus has spread throughout the population. And none of the testing they've done, all the testing they've done is completely useless in terms of determining how many people in the entire country have had the virus. I don't think there's any way to really know that. Just because whenever they test someone, they're only testing people that come in who are already sick, and they're not just doing random tests throughout the population to see, hey, were you sick? Here's a test. Let's see if you had it already and you recovered. They're not doing any of that. Policy makers, if they're going to decide to force people to stay home, they need to know, hey, has a significant percentage of the population not contracted this yet? Let's keep people home, make it so it won't spread and stuff. If, on the other hand, this virus is as contagious as they were saying, maybe even more contagious, I personally think it's very likely a very large part of the US population has already had the virus and they got through it. Probably okay for most people. So if that's the case and the government is shutting down the economy, well, at that point it's kind of pointless. You're way too late to the game. You're shutting down the economy for no reason at that point. But there's no information, so the politicians have no way of actually making a good decision. They can only make a decision, and then we can look at it in hindsight, and who knows if we'll even be able to determine whether or not that was a good decision. There's no real way to quantify how many lives were saved versus sacrificing the economy. It's really difficult call. I honestly would not want to have to make that decision myself if I were a politician. So I don't blame the politicians for being scared and shutting down the economy. But I do think they should have just manned up and been like, hey, we can get through this. Let's not panic. Let's not freak out. Keep going to work. But we want you to implement these safety things. That's what people are doing now, and that's great, but this should have been implemented a long time ago. So, no, sorry I just went on that rant. The rest of this article basically says, hey, bigger companies can cash in as their smaller competitors struggle. That's nothing new, and that's just the reality of life. The government creates obstacles and problems for businesses, and big companies have lobbyists and more cash which they can throw at these issues and get a politician's ear and work it out in their favor, whereas their smaller competitors don't have those resources. And yeah, there you go. So now we look at the stock market and it's rallying. Wow, it's broken way past 3,000 now. So we've got the stock market rallying and the economy in the absolute tank. And why? Because Walmart, Target, Amazon, all these giant corporations, which we consider essential to everyday life because they provide groceries, they provide all the goods you could possibly need for daily living, none of them were forced to shut down. Meanwhile, all the small businesses in your neighborhood who employed the majority of people in our country were forced to shut down. So now you've got these massive layoffs. But these big corporations are profiting because the government's sending stimulus checks to everyone. Now everyone's got cash. They're going out and buying from the big corporations because they're the only ones that are open. So, yeah, win-win-win-win for them. Of course. So, no wonder the economy is doing great, guys. The government is literally financing the Fortune 500 companies in our country. Now, that's not a terrible thing. I mean, it's good to support the economy, or the stock market and stuff. But this is where people's retirements are. So that's part of the reason. But you need those small businesses, and the government's done a terrible job supporting small businesses. This is really going to come back to bite the governors of the states that, like California, completely shut their states down and stuff. So, but yeah, that's been there, done that. There's nothing we can do about it. It already happened. And just getting on with life. That's the plan. So thank you very much for watching my video. Sorry, it's kind of a more like ranty video. I found that interesting article on Yahoo, which kind of spurred my thoughts a little bit more. Like, oh yeah, okay, I can see why the stock market's up even though the economy's tanking. The stock market really reflects the top 500 largest companies anyway, instead of the broader economy. There's no small businesses in the S&P 500. So, anyways, well, have a wonderful week of trading. Oh, you know what? Real quick, let's run through my outlook for this week. Looks like the market's up. Let me pop into the charts. So yeah, so we've got the moving averages. Stock markets broke out above that. Probably going to continue trending up at this pace. You can definitely see the uptrend. I'm going to be stockpiling negative deltas, but probably this week finally might actually get around to implementing some calendars, and I'll just show you the weekly calendar trades I like to put on. Let's see. So I like to sell the 10-day, let's do at the expected move, 10-day 305, and then buy the 305 right here. And you can do that for about 250, so those prices are a lot more reasonable than they were, collecting 8 theta and almost 5 delta. So I'll definitely probably start implementing some of these to trim my negative delta exposure. And these calendars, as the market rises, they'll profit pretty quickly. So those profits will roll right in very quickly as the market continues rallying. And I'll just get the cycle of weekly calendars just boom, 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 rolling through there and generating consistent profits for the portfolio. The goal has been to wipe out this lingering negative P&L for the year, and I'd like to do that by the end of the month. It's been really stubborn, so I don't know if I'll be able to quite achieve that, but it could be possible. So we'll give it our best shot. We still got a week to go before the end of the month. I am going to be traveling a lot this week. Me and my little brother are going to a wedding, one of our friends' weddings, so I won't be able to post quite so many videos, and with the holiday weekend and everything kind of throwing off the schedule too. So, but I will do my best to get a couple videos out for you guys to watch. The like 2 or 3 people that actually do watch these videos. Anyways, so thank you very much for listening to my rant, and that's my plan going forward. Rolling with the negative deltas and adding positive deltas and taking them off as they profit. So anyway, I want to keep the portfolio negative with more theta than delta, of course. So alright, well, have a wonderful rest of your week, guys, and I will talk to you later. Ciao.